Welcome back to the Modern Leadership Solutions podcast. In the last episode, I challenged you to get intentional about where your workday starts and stops. Today, I'll show you a simple, practical way to lock those boundaries in place. I use the full focus system, which includes 4 daily rituals, but we're honing in on the Workday Startup and Shutdown routines. These bookend my workday, give my brain clear on-off switches, and keep my energy aimed in the right direction. Let's walk through them and see how they work and why they matter. So, Workday Startup and Workday Shutdown rituals. What are they? Well, basically, they are routines that I use at the beginning and the end of each workday to mark the start and stop of my work. You can call them bookends, brackets, whatever you want to call them. The bottom line is that these things have become habits so that I don't really have to put a lot of energy into them. The startup routine is the very first thing I do as part of my workday. And the shutdown routine marks my last work activity of the day, giving my brain that permission to stop working, essentially serving as the off switch. It gets me to a stopping point of my workday activities and allows me to put everything down until the next workday. Now, I'm going to dig into both of these and let's see how these work as we go through the steps of each one of these routines. Let's start with the Workday Startup routine. This is a series of steps that I do at the beginning of each workday that essentially gets me going and make sure that I'm headed in the right direction. So the very first thing that I do every workday is I review the news feeds and I look at social media notifications. Now I look at the news feeds rather than watching the news so that I can just scan the headlines and look at the things that I think I should look at that are relevant to my business. I don't waste a lot of time reading just miscellaneous headlines and digging into deep stories just because they don't help me at all. Now, and then when I get to social media notifications, all I do is look to see if what notifications have come in since last time I checked. I don't spend a lot of time scrolling on social media. I do that as part of a different routine on days when I am digging up content, working on ideas. So I just strictly look at the notifications. The next thing that I do is then I do a process I call clearing my inboxes, and I got this from David Allen's book, Getting Things Done. It's a good book. You should read it if you get a chance. I took a lot of those concepts and built them into what I do as I clear inboxes. The goal is to get all of the messages, anything that's come in and email-wise, out of my inboxes. But I process them to get them out of the inbox. And I will say that I only check email 3 times a day. Other than that, I don't check email. If people need to get a hold of me, they know that they can reach me either by phone or text or some other instant form. So once I've done the clearing the inboxes, then I do what I call reviewing my dashboards. And this is my CRM, some of my event planning apps that I use. I look to see what's on those to-do lists or anything that I might need to be aware of that's come up. And in high level, which is the CRM that I use, I also look to see if there's been any conversations generated around any of the marketing materials. But I do that as part of the startup. Then I go through and I review any new posts in the communities that I'm a part of. Then I go through and I look at what I've designated to be my top 3 priorities for the day to make sure that those are still good priorities for this day. Regardless of anything else, I'm going to get those 3 things done because I've flagged those as the most important things that I can get done in this day. And they're usually not difficult things to accomplish. They're not going to be extremely challenging, just so that I can make sure that I'm making positive steps. Then I go through and I look at the daily agenda. What do I have planned? What are the meetings on my calendar for the day? What other things may have popped up? What am I looking at doing, and how am I going to lay out this day? Then I go ahead and synchronize my online calendar and my online task list to my Full Focus Planner, which is a written planner, an analog planner that I carry with me, and that's what I work out of throughout the day. I'm not typically going back to my electronic calendar or my electronic task lists unless I need to schedule some kind of appointment on the fly. And then the final thing that I do as part of this is that I add time blocks into my Full Focus Planner. What I do is before and after each meeting is I block out time to make sure that I can go into the meeting or the event prepared, and then once I get done with it, it gives me a block of time to debrief and think through what happened, what I learned, what I need to take away, and there's a process behind that as well. So that is the way that I start my day. And I need to note that I don't block every minute of every day. I leave room in there for flexibility and spontaneity. There are times when I decide that I want to move my workout from the normal early morning times to either right before lunch or some other time in the day. And I've got the flexibility in this system to be able to move it around as I need to. So when I get to the end of the workday, I then go through the second process to essentially put the stopping point on the day, and that is this Workday Shutdown ritual. For me, this is what this process looks like. The first thing that I do as part of this routine, this ritual, is that I look back and I clear all of the emails out of my inboxes. The same process that I used in the morning, I used it again to make sure that I'm processing any emails that have come in and making a decision on what to do with them. The other thing that I do is check my voice memos, and that's a process that I hadn't talked about yet, but throughout the day I am carrying a voice recorder. I've got one on my phone, I've got another digital one, and I've got my planner with me. And if anything comes up that I need to remember, any ideas that I have, any random thoughts, I record them. And then at the end of the day, I go back and I listen through these and decide which of these I need to keep, and then I memorialize that in a more formal process to take forward. Or I just delete it if it was just a random idea that I'm not going to move on. Then once I've done that, I look back on the day and I reflect on any of the wins that I've had, any insights I've gained, lessons that I've learned, or any decisions that I've made. The third part of this process then becomes to take a few minutes and write down 3 to 5 things for which I'm thankful. And they can be small things, they can be large things. But at the end of the day, I like to make sure that I do have some focus on the positive things that have happened and not just get swamped in all the negative things. Then I go back and I look at the 3 things that I had determined at the beginning of the week to be my 3 most important things to get done this week. And I look and see how much progress I've made. Did I make any steps? Have I finished any of them or any of that? This will factor into my thinking as I start determining what are my 3 priorities for the next day, which we'll get to in a minute. I also look at what's on the calendar for the next day, because if I have a day stacked full of appointments and other meetings and things, I know that I'm not going to have a lot of time to do some of the work that I'm doing behind the scenes. And so you want to keep that in mind so that you don't overload yourself with too many things to try to get done in one day. If I have a day full of meetings with coaching clients, then I'm not going to do a lot of work on content. So it's good to know what's on the calendar. Then I look at what I call the ideal week. This is part of the full focus system that I'll talk about at some later point. Then I go back and I look at my planner for what's happened, what I've made note of in the planner, and I synchronize that back to my electronic calendar and my electronic task list. And then the last thing I do as part of this shutdown routine is that I determine what are going to be my priorities for the next day. And these will be things that move me in a positive direction towards completion of a larger goal. I want to be making positive steps every day, something that I can look back and say, yes, that was a good step. It doesn't have to be huge, but it has to be forward progress. And so by putting this all together in this format, once I finish this routine, I essentially can close the book on this workday. And once I do that, it unloads my brain and allows me to not think about it overnight in my off time. Typically after 4 o'clock, I'm trying not to think about work. This essentially allows me to transition into the non-working part of my day. And it's an intentional boundary that I set so that I don't overload myself with work. The thing that I like about this process is that it essentially transcends whatever your current circumstance is. When I came out of corporate life and moved into the entrepreneurial life, I found that these routines actually translated without changing. So they were very good at keeping me focused and keeping me on track. And so that's where I'm going to leave this episode. A lot of these topics I'm going to translate over into future episodes and dig in more detail. But for now, I think that's enough. It's a lot of things. If you want a copy of either one or both of these routines, I'd be glad to send it to you. Just shoot me a message, send me an email, something. And these are not proprietary in any way, and they change depending on what I find to be useful. There are times when I'll add components. There are times when I'll take components away. So that closes this out, and this is where I want to leave you, is that set these intentional boundaries around your workday, and you'll find out that it helps you not only enjoy the non-working time, but it also gets your brain in a better condition so that when you are working, you're more effective. So I'll leave you with that, and I just want to remind you that effective leadership is intentional, and I'll see you in the next episode.